did I even read this month? Oh, here they are. Hello everyone. So we moved. We're working with what we got. Literally moved a couple days ago and everything's still in boxes and or strewn about. Everything is a mess. Move left us without a couch. I am without a desk. So things are not ideal for filming. I'm sitting on what will be our living room floor when we get a couch and filming in this camera that I don't normally film videos like this on, but hopefully it'll suffice for this week. So I figured I would just do a March reading wrap up, everything that I read in March. Because surprisingly, with how busy I was with packing everything, the move was, I can't say last minute, but we wouldn't have moved if we didn't have to move, long story short. So surprisingly, with all of the busyness in March, with finding a new place and packing and all of that, I did manage to read 5 books in March. Without further ado, let's just jump into it. In no particular order, Mansfield Park. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This book is interesting because the main character, Fanny Price, she gets sent to live with her aunt when she's young because her mom and family are poor, so she gets sent to live with their rich aunt. And it's interesting because it's about Fanny Price, but you don't actually hear a lot from Fanny herself because she's the poor niece. Everyone's doing a lot of talking about her. And that's really what it is. It's just her relatives and the people that are living in this house talking about her. Basically, she's not as good as us because of her family, because of where she comes from. And it's kind of awful. You're like, what the heck? These people are terrible. And there's a lot of mundane things that go on. And I could see it being thought of as kind of boring, but all of it is intentional to build these characters up. That way the ending is more dramatic and more impactful. So all of this building on all of these characters, you're thinking, wow, these people at Mansfield Park suck. They're mean to her, or they don't care about her, or they're looking at her in a certain way that's just not right. And then at one point later on in the book, she goes back home for a little bit, and we're thinking, oh, maybe this will be nice, going back to her more immediate family, and she's just ignored, completely ignored. Her parents don't really care that their daughter that's been away for most of her life is back. So it's like, what is worse, being talked about or being ignored? And only when she goes home is it really realized that her true value at Mansfield Park. The people at Mansfield Park love her and care about her and need her, but in a way that wasn't necessarily obvious from the start, because as she got older and fell into her life at Mansfield Park, she really becomes like a key aspect of it, and it's not fully realized until she goes back home. For books like this, sometimes I find it really beneficial to do like a character list of like who is who, who's related to who has a crush on who, because it can get a little confusing, especially when they're addressing people by their last names. So it's like their parents are here, but we're talking about the oldest child, but they're calling her by her last name because it's like formalities and stuff. So it's like, it's important to like have the list of characters. So it's like, okay, we're talking about the son, we're talking about this sister as opposed to that sister, because they all have the same last name. So it's like, which one are we talking about? And then it's like, okay, this person is engaged to this person and this person is related to Fanny in this way, and that's why she's here. I did a little character list and I found that to be really helpful. And then I did tabs. So any character building, because the character building was very important. I mean, I think character building is probably always important, but that's what makes the dramatic climax of the story super dramatic, is because if you're understanding these people's true character, that's where the impact comes. And then I even have a whole tab that was for talking about Fanny. So when Fanny's not present, or even when she is present, the people in her life do a lot of talking about her as if she's not there. So I have a tab for that and everything. And so I really liked it. It's really like a discussion on integrity and people's true character and all that. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. So moving on. The next book I read was Career of Evil. This is the third book in the Cormoran Strike series. This is a reread for me this year. I've decided to reread the whole series in anticipation for a new release coming this September. So this is the third book, Career of Evil. And there's so many books. We're on like 6 or 7 or something. This is one of the smaller books. We get up to like over 1,000 pages. So there's a lot to them. Not that I forget what I read, but they kind of all blend together. And so I really liked this one a lot more than I remember liking it. In the beginning of the books, right, there's a lot of character building throughout each book because we're following two main characters, Cormoran, who's a private detective, and Robin, who starts off as his secretary, but then starts becoming more of his partner. And of course, there is romantic tension between the two of them that just grows throughout this series. And so this book, I think, probably has the most in terms of background information on the two individually. So we get a lot of who Cormoran is and who Robin is and what makes them who they are today. So that's really fun because these are two of my favorite book characters ever. So I really like the character development of them. And also this one is unique because this one you're getting chapters from the serial killer that is in this book. So each book tackles a different crime and it's like either a murder or this one's a serial murder. So this one's unique because we're actually getting a perspective from the serial killer, and the stakes are high because the serial killer seems to be targeting Robin herself. They receive a dangerous package, and so it's just very personal, and the stakes are a lot higher in this one than the previous two books. So I really enjoyed this book. I just can't express enough how much I love Robin and Strike. They're my favorite couple that's not a couple, you know? And then I also read Coraline. So I've never read Coraline before. I had seen the movie probably back when it came out and am familiar with the story, but I've never read it before. I gave this a 4 out of 5 as well. So creepy to be a kid's book. It says like 8 and up, which is just wild to me. And it's also just like hits on a true fear for me, at least for when I was a kid. Like if I was a kid reading this. So it's basically about this girl who has 2 working parents and she's kind of neglected by them, and they move into this new house and summer break, so she's just kind of bored and not really happy, and she finds this portal in her house to this other world that looks a lot like the real world. And in this other world, she finds her other mother, who at first appearance looks just like her actual mom. However, it's like a fantasy scenario, like both her parents are doting on her and love her and are wanting to do things with her. So just representative of what she doesn't have in her real life. But in the course of this small kid's book, it's like this other mother actually isn't as she seems, actually is something evil that wants something bad from her. And it just really hits on a true childhood fear of mine. When I was a kid, the scariest thing was being separated from my parents. My mom specifically, I was glued to her when we would go anywhere when I was a kid. And so like the scariest thing is like being separated from them. That's why that scene from Spirited Away, if you've ever seen Spirited Away, in the very beginning when her parents turn into pigs, I saw that as a kid, absolutely scarred me, horrified me. So kind of around the same realm of being separated from your parents. And on top of that, she's like a spider hybrid of her mom. Like she's got spider qualities to her. So just horrifying imagery. And I really liked how this book has illustrations in it as well. Like this right here. What is that? This one's just unsettling. Also, because it's a kid's book, it is so short, and it honestly left me with more questions. The other beings in the other realm talk about the other mother, like, oh, she built this world, or she does this, she does that. And she clearly has some sort of power. And I feel like if this was a book for adults, it would have gotten more fleshed out into who is this other mother, like what is she and what is her power, because I think that would be really interesting. But it's a kid's book, so it doesn't go that far. Yeah, so I really like this. So the last things we read will kind of chunk together because it is the first and second book of the Throne of Glass series. So Throne of Glass, book 1, Crown of Midnight Book 2, and I liked the first one a lot. If you've watched any of my other reading content where I tackle romance fantasy, my opinions on romance fantasy are still being developed. I feel like I don't have very high regard for these books, but that's not to say that I don't like them. When I read ACOTAR last year, I described it as junk food reading, where it's like really entertaining, easy to read, fun to read, very enjoyable, but not the most nutritious in terms of content. And that's just the way I also feel about these books. Now, this is also Sarah J. Maas, so when I talk about romance fantasy, I'm not coming from a place with a lot of experience. I'm coming from a place of ignorance and from a place of I've only read a couple and the majority of them have been the same author. So fully aware that I could just be generalizing a huge genre that I have barely dipped my toes into. But the first one I really liked. I feel like it's a good setup, and again, I can't help but compare them to ACOTAR. I do find them being very similar, and again, coming from the ignorant place of my experience of romance fantasy, are they the same because all romance fantasy is the same, or are they the same because they're by the same author? Both, I think, are possible. That question is coming from a place of ignorance but genuine curiosity, you know? So this book sets up the main girl is being taken out of this basically prison camp to be put into this competition that the king is having to try and find a champion who will basically work as his assassin, who will do his dirty deeds. And her motive for this is a paying position. And on top of that, the contract is for like 4 years. And so after that, she would be free, which she was coming from a prison camp. So that is her motivation. And in the first book is just her getting to the castle. And of course, where the romance comes in is her sponsors, is the prince, right? And he's of course her age and attractive and, you know, just very interesting guy. And the guy who's working closest with her is the captain of the guard, who's also young and her age and just so cool. So that's the setup of this book, and the competition happens in this book. And I don't think it's a spoiler to say that she wins the competition because there's literally 8 books in this series. So I don't think it's a spoiler to say that she becomes the king's champion. There's more obviously going on. So the king has like banished magic throughout the land. There's like no more magic, allegedly, of course. But then as the book progresses, you know, weird things are happening. She's getting visions. This old princess is coming to her and telling her things. So there's a lot of subplots. My main complaint with this book would be the romance is just weird. It's like literally every chapter we're just flip-flopping between her with the prince and then her with the captain of the guards. And not like with as in romantically, but just like literally like she's going to bed and the prince just comes into her room and they talk for a little bit and then he leaves and then the captain of the guards just shows up because they just are hanging out, and it's just kind of weird. And I understand that it's like to set up the dynamics between them and it's moving the plot forward. It's just weird because it's like every other chapter is literally we're just, oh, we're with the prince, oh, we're with the captain of the guards. And then we're also reading 4 books a week, and we're also training, and we're also competing and trying to stay alive. So it's like, how is all of this happening within a pretty short span of time? And when are we sleeping and all of that? And then I finished the second one most recently, and I think I liked this one less. Still in the same vein though, still on the same sort of track. I gave the first one 4 out of 5, and then this I gave a 3 out of 5. In this one, we're more decided on who her love interest is, and it frustrates me because as soon as they get together officially, it's literally less than 100 pages of them being a couple. And it's not just like, oh, we're just casually a couple. It's like, you are my other half. I've been looking for you my whole life. It's like 100% all in. We were made for each other kind of situation, which I love, okay? I'm not mad at that. But then it's like literally less than 100 pages of that. And then something happens and it's like, trust broken. I don't want to see you ever again. You're dead to me. And it's just, that's what kills me. I just, ugh. So in this one, she's the king's champion. She's working. She's being assigned jobs to kill these people for the king and all of these political subplots, right? Political intrigue that I don't feel like is super important to understand what's going on. And then obviously her relationship and more development on the magic that is seemingly in the castle. And we find out more about our main character's background, that she's not just some random girl. She actually is somebody important, of course, potentially has magic. And we also find out that it's not possible to completely eradicate all magic, especially when it's in people's bloodline. So, of course, we find out that there is still, in fact, magic, and that many of our main characters might possess it. Very easy to read, very fun, entertaining, and I'm definitely gonna pick up the next one. Probably not immediately. There's some other things that I want to read, and like I said, it's kind of, in my opinion, junk food reading, and I don't mean to offend anyone with that term, but it's just the best way I can describe it for myself. So I'm gonna pick up the next one, but I think there's a couple other things that I want to read, because when I read ACOTAR, I read through that in a month, and while it was fun and I had a good time, I just wonder, like, is this the best sort of materials to be filling my brain with? So we're gonna space it out. So I will pick up the third one, but not immediately. So that is everything that I read in March. It was a pretty good reading month for me. I enjoyed everything that I read, which doesn't happen all the time. 5 books is more than I usually read a month. I average about 2 a month. So March was a good reading month. So that is actually going to do it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed. If you have any thoughts and opinions on any of the books that I read this month, or if you have any recommendations that you think I would like, I'd love to hear about it down in the comments below. I love hearing about books. I love talking about books, and I'm always down to receive recommendations for new things. I need to get back to unpacking and getting my life in order because it's a mess right now. I'm hanging on by a thread, not gonna lie to you. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see more reading content in the future. Again, I thank you for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!